Good evening, class. Tonight I want to discuss the Second Amendment. It was passed September of 1789 and it was ratified a couple of years later in December 1791. I want to begin the discussion post with a quote from Stephen Hayes, and it says, "Since the very dawn of time, man had weapons to protect and defend himself." That's what the Second Amendment deals with, the protection of citizens of the United States, what rights they have to protect themselves. The Second Amendment states, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." And today the discussion is, what exactly did the Founding Fathers mean when they drafted and wrote the Second Amendment to our Constitution? The Second Amendment provides the general public with the constitutional right to individually bear arms that is not connected to a militia or connected serving in the military. And there are several court cases that have looked at what exactly the Founding Fathers meant when they said that you had the right to bear arms. In 1939, there was a Supreme Court case, U.S. versus Miller, that debated the rights that citizens had in regards to possessing weapons. And the Supreme Court in that case focused on the clause in the amendment that dealt with the militia. So they focused much on a military aspect. And what the court case determined was that the federal government and states could limit firearms of a citizen if it was not directly related to a militia or needed for protection with the government or the state. Now, while the U.S. Supreme Court determined in the Miller case that citizens could be limited by the state or federal government with their ability to possess weapons if they were not directly related to a militia, over the years, other court cases have also been to the Supreme Court to get a ruling on what exactly the Second Amendment means. The next court case I want to talk about is one from 2008, and it is the District of Columbia versus Heller. The court case looked at the Second Amendment and did it grant an individual the right to possess a firearm for traditionally lawful purposes such as self-defense, and they found that the Second Amendment does. And this was a huge case because it overruled two D.C. laws saying that they violated constitutional rights. The two laws that were overturned was D.C. had banned handguns, and they had put a regulation that all firearms that were in the home had to be disassembled or trigger locked or disengaged. And the Supreme Court determined that this was a violation on individuals' constitutional rights. So this case gave people the right to possess and carry firearms, which was a change from the Miller case prior to this. Another court case that addresses the Second Amendment was the McDonald versus Chicago, and this focused on self-defense as well. The Supreme Court interpreted the right to bear arms as a fundamental right that exists by virtue of the Second and 14th Amendment. They also felt that it was reasonable for restrictions to be placed on the right to own, possess, or bear arms. The debate over the right to bear arms is still up in the air. In fact, the Supreme Court just refused to hear two cases from California. However, I do think that the Founding Fathers did intend on tyranny to be a reason for maintaining arms. Hitler said, "To conquer a nation, first disarm their citizens," while Jefferson had words of wisdom that in order to prevent tyranny from the government, you needed to ensure that your citizens were armed.